Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the West End Imps show. As always, I am Jake. We're joined once again, by Mr. K. Chris, how are you this afternoon? Again, by Mr. K. Chris, how are you this afternoon?
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's weird doing an afternoon one, actually, isn't it? I think, like we just said off air, got a bit of a hoarse throat.
Yeah, I'm fortunate to I booked yesterday and today off work, so I've got away with one. Right, we'll talk about Derby then. Obviously, just to summarise before we do get started, a really good point on the road. Really happy with the point. Let's turn attention to the team news then. Obviously, unchanged from Bristol Rovers on Saturday, which was to be expected. The way they performed, the way they played, I think everybody warranted their place in the starting 11. I don't think there was any obvious changes. I thought maybe one that he might make was change formation and drop Ben House in the 10 maybe and put Plange on to give us a focal point, but that wasn't the case. But what did you make of the team lineup?
I think it's hard to change it when you've had two good wins and third game in a row that it's been unchanged. No surprises for me. I would imagine I think that's probably our strongest starting 11. At the moment, everyone's playing, really well. Everyone's on form. So, it's hard to start dropping players just for the sake of doing it. But obviously, we're going to have to make a change, at least one for Saturday. But, it picks itself at the minute for me, that 3-4-3 formation.
Yeah, and I think it says it all that the squad, that Mark had to leave somebody out, and that person last night, unfortunately for him, was Danny Mandroya, who has had a very good season. But it just shows you perhaps the depth that we've got within the squad to be able to go to Derby away, perform that well, and still be without Danny Mandroya, who, 3 months ago, was a real key cog in the wheel, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I mean, I just don't know that where does he sit in that formation? Because I do think he's a better 10, isn't he? He's playing off a striker rather than at the minute we're playing with the central man of Ben House with Diamond and Shodipo either side of him, and I'm just not sure Mandroya offers what you want in one of those wide positions that Shodipo and Diamond do offer, with pace particularly. So, it's going to be tough whether we start to sort of tweak the formation slightly to accommodate him, whether he grows into playing into one of those sort of wider roles, I don't know. But certainly, when we've seen the best of him, it's been when he's been dropping into the more central, traditional number 10 role, I guess. A nice problem to have, though.
Yeah, absolutely. First half, then, I thought we actually started really brightly. I think it was straight from their centre kick. I'm pretty sure Paul Warnock had spoke about it in his post-match as well, which I thought, if you've not gone and checked that out, check out what Paul Warnock said, because he's actually very complimentary to the way that Lincoln played. I think Ben House nabbed the ball off them in their own half and could have had a shot, but elected not to. Started really brightly, didn't we? Jack Diamond had an opportunity that he could have scored. We forced a few early corners, and ultimately I thought we grew into the game faster than they did.
100%. Yeah, I think we have certainly the last 3 games, really started aggressively, really started positively, really started on the front foot and tried to push them back, squeeze the opposition back, box them in. And that's where that high press is so effective, I just think that we didn't really give them any time. Didn't give them any space, didn't really, they struggled to get going. I think kind of around 20 minutes, they started to get a bit more of a feel for the ball, and we perhaps they kind of, whether we let them back into it or whether they just shifted a little bit as to how they were approaching the game. Really, really impressed with the last few games with that start, because that's something that I felt we were probably struggling with earlier in the season, was just not coming out of the blocks really aggressively and really taking the game to the opposition. We've got the formation and the players now where we can do that, I feel.
Yeah, I think nobody would have really moaned if we were a goal up earlier than what we actually went a goal up. Derby obviously had some good opportunities. They put one that we certainly thought was going in. They put one was blocked off the line. I think it might have been Jacko. One went over the bar. What I do want to talk to you about before the goal was, obviously, the main talking point of it comes later on, but the first booking for Ben House. For me, I've spoken to a few Derby fans. They thought the first one was a little bit harsh. I understand that he's come from behind. However, I think the Derby players' reaction got the player booked, similar to what we saw Paulie O'Connor do on Saturday. I think it was 5 minutes later, a Derby player did a pretty similar challenge, didn't even go for a foul, or never mind a card. And it's just the consistency which found me an issue. Did you think it was a yellow card for the first one from Housey?
If I'm being honest, I don't necessarily think it was even a foul, let alone a yellow card. So no, for me, it was not a yellow card. It was his first. If you're going to call it a foul, then it was his first one. I just think the ref was just a bit of a rush of blood to his head, really, to whip a card out. And like you say, just not long after, they're in pretty much exactly the same circumstance, and it's played on. Consistency, I mean, we can talk about it week in, week out, but we don't all want to sound like Joey Barton. So, until the referees are professional, full-time referees, it's always going to be problematic, I think.
Yeah, we're pretty much going to be having this discussion every week as we end up doing these shows, which is pretty bad. But obviously, the officials had a massive part to play last night. Moving on to the goal, I thought it was a decent corner routine that tried to get the ball flicked on at the near post. It broke, unfortunately, for Derby. But I think what's been underestimated in the role of the goal was Ethan Errahon's interception. If Ethan Errahon doesn't pick the ball up, Derby maybe 3 or 4 on 1 and definitely go and score. But it's that positioning, and which is why me and so many others, Chris, have been so impressed with him, that he just does the right things at the right time. Found Lewis. Lewis's shot was fairly decent for a centre half. Centre halves, you can often see them sky the ball into the top of that south stand. Got it on target. Yes, Mide is maybe in a different postcode to the rest of the defenders. He's very clearly offside. But he reacted to the line and not putting the flag up, and took his goal away really well. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously offside. When we look back at the stills from it, I felt it was offside when he put it in. But the carnage of the away end at that time, it was just a magnificent celebration, and I was trying to look over at the lino, waiting for him to put his flag up, whilst you were throwing me 2 rows behind. But yeah, I think it was a well worked goal. Like you say, the importance of that interception from Ethan. He's just a real classy player. He's so careful with the ball, quite simple with the ball, but that is often the mark. If you look back historically over some of the greatest sort of holding midfielders, the likes of Didier Deschamps and Claude Makélélé spring to my mind, just because they were from an exceptional French team. That's what they do. They do the simple things brilliantly, and they're just that cog in the wheel that just keeps everyone else turning and moving. And you said, like, don't expect a great hit from a centre back, but we know Monsma can hit them. I'm never going to complain about a goal that goes in our favour like that. But it evened itself out, didn't it? It evened itself out.
Yeah, it was good for Shadipo. I think he became the club's 700th goal scorer, which is, he looked absolutely delighted, didn't he? And to be fair, he's been sweating.
Like you said, he's playing to the whistle. He's not just then assuming I'm offside. He was quick, he was sharp, he reacted well. It was a great little finish. That's all you can expect. If the flag goes up, then the flag goes up. It didn't cue scenes.
Yeah, and I think that's been a testament to the way that Shadipo's worked over the last sort of 10 days or so, because I thought he was excellent away at Accrington. I thought he was excellent again on Saturday against Bristol Rovers, and definitely due a goal, and that slice of luck fell for him. And I'm really happy for him, because I think that might kickstart him now and be a pivotal player between now and the end of the season. And to be honest, Chris, and this is something that I've heard from Gab Sutton. Gab Sutton is an EFL journalist that was at the game on Tuesday night, and it's something I've picked up. He did a live stream on Twitter after the game. I think our wide players, Diamond and Shadipo, in the first half were absolutely imperative into the fact that we were able to pick up control in the game. Whenever Derby were coming forward with the likes of Mendes Lang on one side, Dobbin on the other side, those two were helping their fullbacks tremendously, and which is why the fullbacks then looked to appear to have the better game, because Mendes, Lang, and Dobbin, like I say, weren't able to get past them. I think that is testament to Jack Diamond and Mile Shadipo. What did you think about that?
Absolutely, and defending always starts with the front line. The press, the pressure that Diamond, Shadipo, House put on their back line, on their keeper. At times it's quite relentless, and you're just boxing them in and you're making them make mistakes. And I guess if you're in a position where you're having to hurry, you're having to rush, it makes it easier for everyone else then, doesn't it? And yeah, I just think that they have been really impressive over the last few games. I have come out and been critical of Jack Diamond. I still get frustrated sometimes with his decision making, but his work ethic and Shadipo and the press they were doing and the support they were giving to Poole and to Sean, it made it very difficult for Derby to use the width to break us down. But that's the beauty of having that formation, is that the width isn't always available. I mean, it certainly changed second half, but for extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, I think if we can start next season with a front three of Diamond, Shadipo, and House, I'd be extremely happy, and I think a lot of our supporters would too.
I suspect, unfortunately, two of those won't be back, and one might be sold by then. So.
Yeah, quite unrealistic. I also thought that they had two left-footed centre backs in post last night, and I thought we were very clever and very cute to try and put them on their right foot, and then the ball ended up at our left-hand side quite a lot, and then which made Shaw Roman look sensational, which we'll come on to later. Second half, then obviously Derby made a couple of changes. They brought on Harvey White on loan from Spurs. They took off Dobbin and brought on Tom Barkhuizen, who I actually thought had a really good game. They both did. Obviously, into the second half, I believe the red card comes first. I'm not too sure. That it was in a spell, wasn't it? Where we'll go through the goal first, because that's easy to go through. Obviously, David McGoldrick takes a shot. Conor Hourihane, who is very clearly offside, prods the ball home. But to be honest, it's probably what Derby deserved going off the second 45.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm never going to cry coming away from two games against Derby County with 4 points. I think that's phenomenal. It shows how far we've come and where we wanted to be going to. I think McGoldrick's a very clever player. I was watching him last night, and he just spends the whole game about 5 yards offside, and then at the very last moment just takes a step or a little drop of the shoulder to get himself back on. He's very clever. Really impressed with him, with his sort of tactical reading of the game. He was offside, but you know what? Swings and roundabouts, isn't it? I'm not, 1-1 away to Derby County on Tuesday night is a fantastic result, and I'm not gonna let any kind of frustration around the red card and my personal view. And I've seen a couple of other people that probably share it, that I genuinely feel if we'd have had 11 on the pitch, we would have gone on to win the game. I think just before House, we started the second half in the same way as we started the first half, on the front foot. We were clearly, looking to repeat exactly what had come before. And the red card was just, it killed the game for us, because, at that point, you're just hanging on then, aren't you? You're just getting through to as close to the end of the match as you can possibly get, hoping that you don't concede. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, I've slowly thought about the idea if we had 11 men on the pitch. I was very much disagreeing with you in the car on the way home yesterday, but now that I've sat and thought about it, I think definitely we definitely would have scored again.
I think there was a couple of opportunities that we had, that when we were down to 10 men, when Diamond was breaking through, and I think he had a shot and the keeper palmed it out, and you just think if House was on the pitch, he's there and he's tapping it in. I think we wouldn't have had we very much kind of almost lost our shape after the red card, because it was suddenly, bringing on midfielders and just packing the park as much as we could to try and prevent them getting in. But with that, I felt we lost the width and we lost our ability to keep them at arm's length, because they were overloaded. I mean, in fairness, I think Derby, I'm going to credit them for actually making that extra man count. A lot of the times you see teams that it's really hard. It's actually becomes harder for them against 10 men, but I think Derby made the extra man count. They were overloading on the wings, 3 against 1, 3 against 2. It was always going to be you know, I always felt once House had gone off that they were going to score. And, you know, that's not being disrespectful to Ben House. I don't go buy into the kind of he cost us the points type of vibe. But I think the referee did, because the first one's not a yellow, is it?
Yeah, the second one, which I'm commenting now, definitely was a yellow. It was a stupid tackle for Ben to make. And I'm pretty sure he's acknowledged that in the changing room that he said both were a yellow. I mean, I disagree with him on the first one, but the second one, in the middle of the park, David McGoldrick's not anywhere near causing any threat towards
our goal. It's not going anywhere. There's just no need to make that tackle. You know, that was the biggest frustration for me was, that's a yellow card all day long. But why are you doing that on the halfway line? Just, you know, you can just stand him up, let him be taken up by another player, whatever. He's not in a threatening position. So I think that was just a bit frustrating, really, from that perspective with regards to why Ben decided to lunge in like that. But
so obviously the sending off made us go sort of 5-3-1 towards the end of the game. Lass came on and Max came on. I thought they both ran, which is what we needed them to do. Jack Diamond, I thought, did okay up top by himself, but you know, we were calling maybe 10 minutes before we came on for Luke Plans to come on so that we could hold the ball up a little bit longer. Derby didn't quite use for me personally, I didn't think they quite used the extra man to their advantage. They were playing a lot of the ball in front of us and they were making crosses, but O'Connor, Monsma and Jacko are going to eat crosses up every day of the week. They proved that away at Ipswich. I think the time that I felt that we were closest to conceding was when the 9 minutes went up, because I'm pretty sure after the 9 minutes they hit the bar, they had one disallowed. I thought they were seriously banging at the door, and I was thinking, you know, when McGoldrick headed the ball in for what was to be the disallowed goal, I sort of just slumped down and thought, well, yeah, that's probably about right. But fortunately, the line they flagged. But Derby, they weren't fantastic, and I think they'll have their own problems. But I thought we looked fairly comfortable for most of the 44 minutes that we played with 10 men.
Yeah, I think we really matched them quite well, and you know, they have a good, you know, they're a really good team, aren't they? They've got some very, very talented players. They move the ball really quickly. You know, I think once it was 10 men, our sole purpose was to just try and survive. There was very little, you know, you can't have a great deal of attacking intent or ambition. It's backs to the wall, and you know, it had shades of the Ipswich for me. Just unfortunately couldn't keep a clean sheet. But you know, I've seen a lot of the Derby fans going on about the time wasting and the cheating, and I'm like, yeah, well, we were, but who wouldn't be? You're down to 10 men and you're trying to hold on to a very slender 1-0 lead or squeeze a point out of a game that really, given the circumstances, we maybe shouldn't have come away with a point, because Derby were piling that pressure on last 15, 20 minutes. It was relentless. You know, I don't think we got out of the half. Plange was playing as 15 yards inside his half for pretty much that last 15 minutes. And, you know, credit to the boys, because it was a really resilient performance. It was a really, you know, and I think you could tell that at the end with the celebration in the away end and the players coming over and Mark, you know, pumping his badge and his heart to us, and you know, it felt that togetherness. It felt like it was a real collective performance, fans included.
Yeah, I definitely think now that we had the disconnect last year with Appleton, I think we've definitely got that back. There's definitely a connection between the players and the fans. The final thing that we have to talk about would be our man of the match contenders. I'll tell you what, because there are so many options, Chris. We'll do an honourable mention each, I think, and then we'll give our actual man of the match. My honourable mention is Carl Rushworth. As a goalkeeper myself, I understand it's the most difficult position to play on the pitch. Rushy, everything yesterday stuck. There was one particular moment, I brought a mate who's a Forest fan, and he said he was really impressed with Carl. Everything he held. There was one where they were down the right-hand side, and they were going to cross it in, and Rushworth just anticipated that and moved he come about 3 or 4 yards out of his goal to make a save with his feet. I just think Rushworth had a brilliant night, and obviously channeled his inner Paul Farman as well by going down a couple of times, which I'm absolutely not against.
Wonderfully prompted by Mark Kennedy on the touchline. Yes, I absolutely love that. You know, he was absolutely screaming at Rushy to go down to make that sub. And that's brilliant. That's great coaching, great management.
And who would, if you're not going to agree with me, who would your honourable mention be?
Well, I was going to agree with you, but I'm going to just pick someone else as an honourable mention, and I'm going to just because every game I seem to be coming away really impressed by Paudie O'Connor.
Yeah,
I just think he is a really, really good shining example, and if you're playing around someone like that, you're going to be drawing so much strength and energy from that individual. So yeah, honourable mention to Paudie. I'm pretty sure we've gone head and shoulders for the same man of the match last night.
Yeah, Sean Rowan, 19 years old, up against Nathaniel Mendes-Lang, who is an experienced winger at this level and the level above. It was due to help from Shodipo. I won't be naive in saying that, but I thought even when we went to 5 at the back, went to 5-3-1 when after Housey got sent off, I thought he more than held his own. And he's come such a long way since that day at Bolton, where we conceded the soft second goal, which was his fault from the throw in. I think he came out in the press and said, "I'll learn from it and I'll get better." And boy, is he got better. He is a real asset to the football club, and nights like last night are exactly why he's 19 and making 20 appearances, 25 appearances so far for the first team this year. If you tell me you're not going to agree with me, then I've got no idea what game you're watching.
No, I completely agree. I gave him man of the match at half time.
Yeah,
he was exceptional. Second half, I think it's harder to judge because you're playing a very different type of game. But first half, they just weren't getting past him at all. His positioning was perfect. And I think if we consider the model of our club at the moment, that we're looking at 3 players in Sean, Ethan, and Housey, who are going to be the types of players that we're going to be selling, brought in for quite low figures. I don't know what Ethan's fee was. I'd imagine it was a pretty decent fee, but he's going to be sold for significantly more than we bought him for, and that's fantastic to see those players come into our club, choosing our club, because I think there's definitely a feeling that we can improve players. And that's just great. We potentially have 3 high 6-figure, if not £1 million players, in my opinion, in Sean Rowan, Ethan Erhan, and Ben House. So it's brilliant. Yeah, Rowan's just been so impressive. Going back to that Bolton game, the most important thing when someone makes a mistake is that they learn from it and they improve. And I mean, he's done that in absolute spades, hasn't he?
Yeah, agreed. And Sean is a real asset for the football club. I think Danny Cowley was on the EFL highlight show and said that the football club put a lot of work into to poach him from Ireland, to allow him to do his education over here while playing for Lincoln City, and that has been a decision that has paid off in abundance, because that boy is special, and I think he'll go on to play, if not in the Championship, perhaps in the Premier League when he's at the peak of his powers. Right, Chris, we have gone on for a long time about just a point away at Derby, and we'll be.
Come on, that's a big point. It's a big point.
It's an outstanding point, to quote.
If we consider where we were all feeling emotionally after Cambridge. Now we've got, what's that?
9 points.
9 points from 12.
Yeah.
Suddenly MK and Cambridge points look very different, feel very different. And, 4 points against a very, very good, probably playoffs, team in Derby County is exceptional. And, long may it last.
But it's not going to get any easier, Pompey, on Saturday, which we will all see you there for. Looking forward to it. We'll have Tom Thornhill written all over it on the channel this week as well for a preview, so stick around for that. Looking forward to, obviously, your birthday, Mr. K, as well. Looking forward to a nice weekend where it's your birthday.
Yeah. If Mark Kennedy, if you're watching, because I'm sure you are, mate. Make sure you give me 3 birthday points, won't you?
Absolutely. Right. We're going to crack on. I've got a haircut to attend, so I'll see you in a minute, Jack. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you, Chris, for joining me. And up those shagging imps.
Up the imps.